Part 7. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Konoha, Root Headquarter. It's been nearly 2 weeks, Izumi. Danzo stated as he glared down at the woman before him. The old war hawk had expected immediate results when he had dispatched the Uchiha woman. Instead, she had so far only relayed information he already knew. What is your progress? Forgive me, Danzo-sama, but I have made little progress in my task as Uzumaki-san is currently out of the village on a mission with his team. Izumi reported, her eyes to the floor. Why didn't you pursue your target then? The bandaged war hawk inquired, not taking his eyes off her. Outside of the village, there would be a higher chance of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki being isolated. With all due respect, Danzo-sama, Izumi ventured, even outside the village, Uzumaki-san is well protected and due to his past treatment by the civilians, hardly ever lets his guard down. The Haruno girl that is on the team is also one of his girlfriends, and is never far from him. Danzo seemed to mull over this. He already knew from his sources that the pink-haired girl was romantically involved with the Jinchuriki, but was now beginning to wonder if he could use the boy's love interests as a means to trap the brat and finally get him to submit to becoming his weapon. And what of the women involved with the Jinchuriki? The bandaged man inquired. Could they be used to lure the Jinchuriki into a trap? I do not think so, Danzo-sama. Izumi replied with a slight frown. Almost all of them are formidable and would attract too much attention if we were to attempt to abduct them. And the only civilian is constantly accompanied by one of the others. The old war hawk could only frown at this. It almost felt as if each of the brat's girls were specifically instructed to look out for one another to reduce the chances of any sort of action taken against them. I expect immediate results upon the Jinchuriki's return, Danzo commanded, looking down once more at the Uchiha girl before him. I will not accept any further failures from you, Izumi. He left his unspoken threat hang in the air. Of course, Danzo-sama. She replied automatically. You are dismissed. The bandaged war hawk waved his hand in a dismissive fashion. Without another word, Izumi stood and left the room, hiding the fear she felt as it was very clear what the threat was. If she fails one more time to acquire her target, she will be disposed of. Though from her conversation with the blonde Jinchuriki last week, she already knew she was doomed to fail. Recalling the words he spoke to her in regards to Danzo, I wouldn't be surprised that once you are of no use to Danzo, he will dispose of you. It's true, Izumi thought to herself with a frown. Danzo-sama has made it clear that he already thinking of disposing of me. Meanwhile, Danzo watched as the Uchiha girl left the room before turning his attention to another individual that was in the room. Has there been any leads for the Yakumo girl, Sai? No, Danzo-sama, the emotionless boy replied. If the Jinchuriki is involved, then she is likely at his compound. I have been unable to confirm that, as the security seals around the Uzumaki compound are extremely complex. That damned able woman was far more efficient with seals than Minato could ever hope to be. Danzo mused. Continue searching for a way into the compound. Of course, Danzo-sama. Sai replied. Is there anything else you require of me? Yes, the old war hawk stated. Have 2 root squads follow Izumi. If she shows any disloyalty, they are to eliminate her. It will be done, the boy said before standing from his kneeling position and setting off to complete the tasks given to him. Are you sure it's wise to just eliminate her? She could be used for breeding. A shadowed man inquired from the shadows. Hell, I would even volunteer. She isn't bad looking. Unfortunately, her Uchiha blood is too diluted to guarantee the Sharingan is passed down. The old man informed his partner in the shadows. She is also unable to fully utilize her own, which also makes her useless as a test subject. Still, we can give her body to Orochimaru. I am sure he will appreciate that. How goes Operation Red Dawn? The old war hawk turned to the larger man, whom only grinned in response. The organization has been established and will begin to move within a few months. The man reported. All it took was a few well-placed lies, a little nudging, and a fake promise about peace. Good, Danzo replied with a faint smile. If he couldn't get the Kyuubi Jinchuriki as his own personal weapon, then he would acquire the rest and force the entire shinobi nations to submit under his rule. After all, why settle for a village when you can have the entire world under your thumb? With Naruto, Isube, Sandayu and the director of the movie could only stare at the young blonde shinobi in front of them with their mouths hanging open. For his part, Sandayu was greatly relieved that Yukie no longer had to bear herself in front of the cameras, and even better was that the young actress was fully on board and reinvigorated with the new direction they were going in. So you're the author of the Demon Heart books? Sandayu finally asked to clarify what he was just told. That is correct, Naruto replied as he unsealed one of his many scrolls that lined the inside of his jacket, producing 3 medium-sized scrolls in his hands. I even have my old transcripts of my currently published books as proof. So, now we don't have to go to the Yuki no Kuni, we can film elsewhere. Yukie put in with a smile. How about waterfall, or hot springs? Sandayu frowned slightly at this. He needed to get her to the Yuki no Kuni, especially since the studio had already fronted the bill for the travel expenses. Naruto also cocked an eyebrow at her actions. He could feel that she really didn't want to go to their destination, even though they were already on the boat. Of course, this was solely up to the producer and director. But Yukie Haim, Sandayu sighed, using her nickname he had given her. We are already on the boat to the Yuki no Kuni. The studio has already paid for the travel expenses, as well as the shinobi protection detail. If we were go elsewhere, the expenses would increase further and they may halt the film altogether. At this revelation, Yukie's eyes widened in shock, before she sunk back down into her chair. Asama sighed. He didn't like using this underhanded tactic, but it was the only way he could get her to Yuki no Kuni. He just hoped he could convince her to help inspire the people still loyal to her father to fight back and overthrow her uncle that had usurped the throne, and then perhaps have her take her rightful place and lead the country. She really doesn't want to go to Yuki no Kuni. Ari observed. Yeah, I'll have to talk to her about it later. The blonde Hanyu mentally nodded. Find out the reason why. So, Naruto spoke up, bringing the attention back to him. I will write the script for the movie. I just need to know if you want it to be a compilation of the books, or if you want an original story. For this, we really need to wow the audiences. The director exclaimed as he stood up for his chair, waving his hands around in erratic fashion. We go for an original screenplay. This will be the best movie ever. Clash in the Land of Snow. The blonde mused out loud. What? Asama inquired. That will be the name of the movie. I love it, the director exclaimed once more, full of energy. Demon Heart. Clash in the Land of Snow. It's perfect. Very well. I will start on the script tonight and I should have it finished before we make landfall. Naruto stated as he stood up from his chair. And please keep this quiet from Kakashi and Sasuke. This is something I do in my personal time and would prefer if only a select few knew of it. Of course, Naruto-san. Asama replied, nodding. The blonde made his way towards the door, silently removing the silencing seal that had been placed and exited the room, closing the door behind him so the director, producer, and Yukie could discuss the shooting schedule for the film. Only to come face to face with a grinning pink-haired Hanyu, an annoyed Uchiha, and Kakashi narrowing his eyes in suspicion at the young blonde. And what was that about? The masked Jonin inquired. Something that you need not worry about. Naruto replied as he walked past the other two, only to be stopped by Kakashi who placed a hand on the blonde's shoulder. I would like to know, regardless. The masked Jonin pressed the issue. Just know that it does not affect the mission. Naruto stated as he shrugged off the Jonin's hand. Now, I got stuff to do, so I'll be in my room until it's my turn to take watch. PFF'd. I don't know why that stuck-up bitch wanted to talk to you anyways. Sasuke commented. What's the matter, duck? The blonde smirked as he turned his attention to the raven-haired emo. Are you still upset that a civilian took you down? We should keep an eye on him. The Kitsune girl commented. Remember what happened last time someone humiliated him? Already got that covered. Naruto mentally replied. That bitch just got lucky. The Uchiha fumed. So what now? Are you going to attack her like you attempted, and failed to do with Haku-chan? The blonde taunted. I am sure that will go over great with the rest of the elemental nations. This seemed to strike a chord with the Uchiha, as he was reminded of his failure to enact his revenge on the ice user, and a bit of shame on Kakashi's part. As the masked Jonin had known what the last Uchiha would attempt, and still let it continue. Looking back, he realized how lucky he was that his blonde student had prevented the Uchiha from enacting his revenge. Realizing that if the last Uchiha had been successful, Kakashi may have found his neck on the chopping block for allowing it to happen. Not saying another word, the blonde Hanyu departed with Sakura in tow towards their shared cabin on the ship, leaving the two Sharingan users to brood and mull over what was said. It wasn't until Naruto and Sakura had disappeared into their cabin did Kakashi realize that the blonde still did not inform him of what took place in the room prior. With Naruto and Sakura, so, Sakura began, looking to her mate expectantly. Well, Naruto began as he activated the silencing seal around their cabin, giving them some privacy from prying ears. I found one of the reasons Yukie-san was in a bad mood. And, the Pinkett required as she took a seat at the table next to the blonde Hanyu, whom had begun writing away in his notebook. Well, turns out my ever-so-humble godfather is the cause of it. Naruto began. I have reason to believe that he used his spy network to intercept a letter addressed to Kitsune, since the studio originally wanted to do a movie based off of my books. Shortly afterwards, Jiraiya moved in with his own deal. Fortunately, Sandayu left the deal open-ended that in the event that I did finally reply, they would drop the Ika Ika movie in favor of their first choice. Sakura could only scowl at the information she had just been given. Good thing Jiraiya was too arrogant to consider the chance of them getting permission for my books. The blonde continued. Bastard made some disgusting demands for Yukie-san while she was on camera. Jashin, don't tell me. She cringed, knowing full well what her mate was implying, as the legendary Toad Sannin was well known for being a pervert and having no respect for women in general. Naruto said nothing, but only nodded to confirm her suspicions. Anyways, I am starting to write out the script for the movie. They want an original story, so might as well make this a continuation of the third book. So I take it Yukie-san is a fan of yours as well. Yup, he grinned, looking to his mate. You should have seen the look on her face when I revealed that I was the author. I can only imagine. At any rate, I don't think she will be prone to run away anymore. Naruto continued. However, I think there is more to this mission than just simply protecting the actress and film crew. I'm going to have to do some digging when we make landfall. Why do you say that? Yukie-san really doesn't want to go to Yuki no Kuni. The blonde explained. I don't know the reasons yet, but I have a feeling it will reveal itself soon. Sakura only nodded. She had complete faith that her mate would ensure the mission would be a success and even do everything in his power to ensure no one got hurt. Of course this made her think of how the actress had humiliated the arrogant Uchiha earlier that day. You really think Sasuke Tem will try something against Yukie-san? The Pinkett inquired. I wouldn't put it past the duck emo. The blonde replied. He has an extremely fragile ego and needs to stroke it constantly. And if he does try something, I've already taken care of that. He reassured his pink-haired lover. I've placed a seal on her that will warn me if she is in danger. Always thinking ahead, Naruto-kun. She smiled as she stood up from her chair and wrapped her arms around his neck, leaning over his shoulder. You know, we could make use of that silencing seal. The blonde Hanyu couldn't help but chuckle at his mate's insatiable appetite. The next morning, a light mist blanketed the water's surface, mildly obscuring vision just enough to force the boat to slow to a crawl as they navigated around various sized icebergs and other smaller debris that float on top of the water. Which served the blonde Hanyu just fine, as it gave him, or rather his shadow clone, more time to continue to work on the script for the movie. As the director had insisted on starting to shoot at least Yukie's solo scenes as soon as they made landfall. Of course, that didn't stop the director from starting to shoot some boat scenes with Yukie, prompting the actress to have to be on call at all times. However, the slowed pace didn't sit well with the sole Uchiha as the raven-haired emo was brooding and complaining to Kakashi about the lack of movement and that they were just wasting their time. Time that he could be using to train instead of watching after some spoiled actress, which of course earned him a hard glare from said actress. Meanwhile, Naruto and Sakura only rolled their eyes at their teammates' behavior. If the young teenager wanted to train, there were dozens of exercises he could do right now to help get his reserves up. But it seemed as the brooding Avenger only cared about training with flashy jutsus. Regardless if performing them a handful of times would leave the Uchiha exhausted to near chakra exhaustion. Uzumaki-san, a feminine voice sounded from behind the blonde, whom was standing at the bow of the ship, watching for anything suspicious within the mist. Please, call me Naruto. The blonde smiled as he turned his attention to the young actress. Very well, Naruto-san. Yukie replied. I was wondering if I could ask you some questions about your current project. Said blonde cocked an eyebrow at her wording, though figured it was due to the possibility of the two Sharingan users possibly overhearing their discussion. Of course, Yukie-san. He replied as he turned his attention back to the mist, as the actress stood beside him, leaning her back against the railing. The characters seemed to be alive. The actress began. Are they based off people you know? That is correct, he chuckled. As selfish as it sounds, the main character, Dante, is based off of me, and very loosely inspired by events in my life so far. The demon queen, Trish, is also based off someone very close to me, as well as the other demon hunter woman, Lady, that joins the hero. I see. Yukie nodded, though she had a feeling he wasn't divulging everything, and that perhaps some of the experiences the hero in the books were far closer to home than he let on. So how is the script coming along? First draft is almost done. Naruto replied, earning a shocked gasp from the actress. But you just started last night. Well, I already had most of the fourth already written. So I just been converting it into the script. He explained. That way, the fourth book will be the novelization of the movie. And don't worry. You have full authority to refuse any part you don't feel comfortable with. Thank you. She smiled with a faint blush, charmed with how considerate he was. Especially considering her previous situation. I'll bring the draft by later this afternoon for you to look over and give your insight. The blonde stated, giving the actress a warm smile, causing her to blush once more. Yukie Haim, we're ready to shoot the next scene. Asama called out from the other side of the ship, causing the young actress to sigh. Duty calls, Naruto commented, earning a small giggle from Yukie before she departed to shoot her scene. Though I wish the director would ease off a little with all these extra scenes. Because somehow, I have to work the scenes they want to use into the script. I guess that's show business for you, Ari quipped, earning a mental nod from the blonde Hanyu. Turning his attention back out to the water, he could see he mist starting to get thicker, prompting him to narrow his eyes in suspicion. He could feel the chakra in the air that powered the mist that now began to envelop the boat. We got incoming, Naruto yelled to the rest of Team 7 and the film crew, alerting everyone to the coming threat. Quickly jumping away from his position to regroup with his team. Immediately, everyone began to run for cover as some of the film crew sought refuge within the ship as the others were instructed to keep filming in case they could get something they could use for the film, causing Naruto to roll his eyes, though he supposed it would look good on film. As this happened, Kakashi began to bark orders at the genin. Sasuke, you protect Yukie. He called out. Sakura, I want you to protect Asama-san, and Naruto you protect the film crew. Immediately after the orders were given, 3 individuals landed on the bow of the ship where Naruto stood only a handful of seconds prior, prompting the 4 Konoha shinobi to take up a defensive stance close to their assigned detail. All 3 fitted with an armor-like outfit that none of the Konoha shinobi had ever seen before. Grinning, the smallest of the trio spoke. A pink-haired girl with her hair tied up in pigtails peeking out trough her hood that covered most of her head. How cute, the princess got herself some bodyguards who want to play ninja. At the word princess, Kakashi, Sakura, and Naruto cast their eyes towards Yukie. All 3 coming to the same conclusion. Well, Naruto-kun was right, there was more to this mission. Sakura thought to herself, and this is why we trust our maid over Tada-sensei. Inner commented, so, we can do this the easy way, and you just hand Princess Koyuki over to us and you get to live. A tall, slender man with lilac-colored hair tied back into a ponytail commented. Or we do this the fun way and you resist and we kill you and then take the princess. Seriously, has that ever worked on anyone? Naruto remarked sarcastically as he summoned one of his dark blades into his hand in a reverse grip position. A simple tanto-length blade, showing he was ready to fight as he positioned himself to defend and counter as needed. Though he didn't miss the now identified Princess Koyuki's eyes widen in fear at her identity being revealed, out of the corner of his eye. Fun way it is then. The large snow shinobi stated with a laugh. A large man with short, crop-cut purple hair with thick, muscular face. Earning chuckles from the other 2 snow shinobi. If you're smart, you'll give up now. The emo arrogantly stated with a smirk. Because you're going up against an Uchiha elite. Too bad the current score for his elite status is 0-3. Ari commented from the blonde's mind. Let's see, he's lost to Zabuza, Haku-chan, and that one chick that lured him into a trap in Kiri. Naruto recounted the Uchiha's current losses. Could make an argument that he also lost to Koyuki-san. The Kitsune girl added with a mental grin at the memory of the vaunted Uchiha being taken down by a mere civilian. That is true, Koyuki-hime did do a number on him. Naruto agreed with a mental nod. Ha, this brat is funny. The larger of the 3 snow shinobi laughed. He thinks we give a shit about his name. You dare mock the might of the Uchiha clan. The emo seethed, only earning more chuckles from the 3 enemy shinobi. Which only served to infuriate the last Uchiha further. Enough talking. Get the Princess Mizore, kill anyone that gets in your way. The lilac-haired man ordered as he moved to engage Kakashi. Fubuki, you deal with the arrogant brat. Damn, I wanted to play with the duck. The larger of the 3 commented, but moved to carry out his orders regardless. Understood, Nadare. The pink-haired snow shinobi replied with a grin as she readied herself for combat. Sakura, back Sasuke up, Kakashi called out as he focused on the apparent leader of the snow shinobi. I don't need help, I'll take them both. The Uchiha exclaimed as he leapt forward to engage both of the charging enemy shinobi. Before the rest of Team 7 could respond, the sole Uchiha had charged the larger snow shinobi, leaving Koyuki completely unprotected. This of course caused Naruto to growl in frustration as the arrogant emo refused to follow orders. Quickly, the blonde Hanyu summoned half a dozen shadow clones to not only protect the film crew and director, but also lead them away from the battlefield. Despite the director's insistence to capture the action on film, this was simply solved by one of the clones taking the camera to capture the confrontation between the 6 shinobi. Of course, Sasuke's blind attack on the large, purple-haired man did not go as the Uchiha had planned or envisioned as Mizore proved to be far more agile than the young genin had expected, despite the snow shinobi's size. Twisting gracefully out of the raven-haired boy's attack and countering with his own as the larger man grabbed Sasuke by the foot and effortlessly tossed him in the direction of the pink-haired snow shinobi. Seeing his opening, Mizore launched his metallic-like gauntlet towards the now exposed princess. However, before the clawed hand could reach Koyuki's position, the princess disappeared and was replaced by a grinning Naruto as he caught the gauntlet with his left hand and yanked hard on it, forcing the larger man to sail forward with no control towards the waiting blonde. Naruto wasted no time and clotheslined Mizore into the deck of the ship with a sicking crack as the boards threatened to break under the impact. Not giving the fallen man a chance to counterattack, the blonde Hanyu quickly leapt back to where Koyuki now stood in complete shock, having experienced being switched for the first time. "Are you all right?" he asked her, only receiving a nod in reply from the dumbstruck princess. Satisfied with her response, the blonde turned to his pink-haired mate and motioned her to come to his location with Asama. "Can you protect these two while I handle the jolly green giant over there?" he asked, gesturing towards the large man that was struggling to stand once more, as Sakura approached him with Asama in tow behind her, getting a quick nod from the pinkett. Knowing that his mate could easily defend the two, Naruto stalked towards Mizore, who was once again on his feet and in a foul mood due to being taken down so easily. "Damn brat," he grunted as he narrowed his eyes at the blonde in front of him. Naruto said nothing as he simply dropped into a wide stance that was unfamiliar to the larger man. His fists balled up and extended outwards, set to either attack or quickly defend and counter. Mizore didn't get long to contemplate this as the blonde quickly shot out from his position and began to assault the larger man with a flurry of elbows and knee strikes, as well as a series of powerful punches and kicks that sent the snow shinobi staggering backwards from the onslaught. However, the larger man failed to notice his position and was soon thrown off the side of the boat due to a brutal jumping knee strike to the chest, accompanied by a vicious elbow to the top of his head, causing white dots to cloud his vision as he spilled onto a smaller iceberg next to the ship. "Damn kid's elbows feel like steel." Sasuke vs Fubuki. Meanwhile, on one of the larger icebergs just off to the side of the boat, Sasuke was evading a flurry of ice attacks from his pink-haired opponent as he countered with his own Kaiden jutsus. More than once had he nearly been trapped within one of the ice techniques that the snow shinobi was using, only barely escaping with a split-second substitution with various items, and at one point a poor seal that was resting on the iceberg. "You're really good at running," she commented with a grin, trying to get under his skin. "Is this all the mighty Uchiha is capable of? Try this," the raven-haired teenager exclaimed as he went through another series of hand seals before launching a massive fireball towards her. Fubuki countered with another series of hand seals before slamming them to the ground, forcing a large ice wall to shield her and begin to surround the lone Uchiha. Attempting to trap him once more. However, Sasuke saw her intent and quickly bounded back as the ice began to enclose upon him faster, nearly capturing him once more before he was forced to substitute himself with an oil lamp with an explosive tag on it. As the tag went off, sending a shower of ice and snow everywhere, the Uchiha used the explosion as a distraction and launched a pair of ninja wire around in an attempt to capture the snow shinobi, hoping to catch her in the explosion. It had almost worked, though the pink-haired shinobi was quick on her feet and activated a pair of wing-like apparel from her armor that cut through the wire before using the heat from the explosion to push her upwards into the sky and away from the fire and a bit towards the ship. Smirking, she went through another series of hand seals before launching a barrage of ice-shaped birds towards the sole Uchiha, forcing him to evade once more, though not before getting cut a few times from the razor-sharp wings. Taking a moment to gauge the location of the four Konoha shinobi, seeing that all of them had their attention elsewhere, the pink-haired snow shinobi reached into her pouch and produced a simple scroll and tossed it in the direction of the princess, whom had quickly picked it up and stuffed it in her pocket, hoping to avoid any attention. However, neither of the two women expected a soul shadow clone to witness the exchange. "If that is all you can do, then I am not impressed," Fubuki commented as she landed a good distance away from the raven-haired Uchiha, earning a growl from her opponent. However, before they could continue their fight, both were forced to jump back as two massive whales made of ice landed between them, forcing them to retreat to higher ground to avoid being sent to the icy waters below them. Meanwhile, Sasuke leapt to the boat for safety. Fubuki watched as the Konoha shinobi managed to return to the ship, as her teammates landed beside her. Though Mizore looked like he had seen better days with his chakra armor full of dents and blood running down from the top of his head. "The hell happened to you?" Fubuki asked. "That blonde brat," the big man replied with a groan. "Damn, Gaki has hands of steel. Either way, we should inform our failure to Dodo-sama," Nadare stated, with Team 7 and Princess Koyuki. "Mind explaining why you lied to us, Asama-san?" Kakashi asked, now that Team 7, the newly identified princess and her producer were gathered in one of the rooms. "The only thing I lied about was Koyuki's identity," the producer defended, "and that was for her protection. And the mission I hired you for clearly stated that there was a high chance of encountering hostile shinobi. Still, you should have let us know beforehand," the masked Jonin continued with a sigh. It seemed his team was cursed that all over their missions outside of the village were destined to be far more difficult than anticipated. So what do you plan to do? Asama looked towards the princess, whose eyes were on the floor before sighing and looking at the silver-haired Jonin. I am hoping Koyuki Haime's presence in the country will inspire the rebels that hope still exists so we can overthrow Dodo and put Koyuki back on the throne. He replied, admirable goals, but my team cannot fight a rebellion for you. Kakashi sighed, we are not asking you to fight in our battle, only that you protect Koyuki as you were hired to. Asama stated, we were hired to protect Yukie Fujika's, not Princess Koyuki. The silver-haired Jonin stated, pointing out a clarification to the mission parameters. This of course prompted both Naruto and Sakura to shoot the masked Jonin a glare at what he was implying. I will have to talk to my team tonight about what we are going to do, as the revelation of Koyuki's true identity does complicate matters. By talking with his team, he means he is going to ask what Sasuke Tem wants to do. Inner Sakura commented, earning a mental nod from the Pinkett. How much you wanna bet now that Duck knows she is a princess, he will start to make a move on her. That's a fool's bet, we both know he is going to start flaunting his Uchiha superiority to win her over. Too bad it looks like she already has eyes on another. Sakura mentally grinned, as she had caught the princess-turned-actress casting glances at her blonde mate. This of course prompted Inner Sakura to giggle. At any rate, we should get some rest for the night. Kakashi said as he moved towards the door. I'll let you know of our decision tomorrow. Having said that, the two Sharingan users departed the room, leaving only Sakura and Naruto behind. As soon as both Kakashi and Sasuke left the room, Naruto closed the door and activated the silencing seal before turning back to the now confused actress and her producer. So, would you mind telling me why that pink-haired shinobi tossed a scroll to you? He asked, prompting Koyuki's eyes to widen in shock. She's my best friend. Koyuki sighed, as she took the scroll out of her pocket. We've discreetly kept in contact throughout the years after I was forced to leave when my uncle murdered my father. If she is your friend, why is she working for the bastard that usurped the throne? Because Dodo held her family hostage. The princess replied, she has also been acting as a spy for the rebellion to help them avoid traps and attacks as much as possible. I just want this to end, so the people can be free of my uncle's tyranny, but You're afraid you will fail. That you will not be able to live up to the people's hopes. Naruto finished, already picking up on the princess's fears. Moving towards her, the young blonde Hanyu knelt before the princess and grasped her hand reassuringly. I, Naruto Uzumaki, will stand by your side until you are rightfully seated on your throne and the tyranny of your uncle has ended. He vowed before the now shocked princess. And you have my help as well. Sakura responded as she knelt down alongside her mate. But what about your team? Koyuki asked. If he decides to. Naruto commented with a shrug, though earning a small chuckle from Sakura. I will not leave anyone to suffer if I can help it. Besides, I already know he will continue the mission, if only to stoke the Uchiha's pride and ego. Thank you. Koyuki smiled as she wiped away a few tears of joy. Now, I promised I would let you look over the script, so here you go. The blonde stated, getting everyone's attention as he produced a scroll from his trench coat and handed it towards the princess. Kazuhana Castle, what do you mean, you failed? The large man that sat upon a large, ornate and luxurious-looking throne exclaimed as he looked down at the two snow shinobi he had dispatched to acquire the lost princess. And where is Mizore? Mizore is currently in the hospital being treated for a concussion, a fractured skull, 3 cracked ribs and a cracked sternum from his fight with the Konoha shinobi. Nader reported from his kneeling position, though clearly shocked at how much damage his large teammate had suffered from the blonde genin. And who is this Konoha team that has given my elite so much trouble? Dodo asked, though in a tone that made it evident he was not amused. A team of 3 genins, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura, and Naruto, led by Kakashi Hatake, the copycat ninja. The lilac-haired snow shinobi responded, not knowing the other 2 genins' names as only the arrogant Uchiha proudly stated his clan's name. I see, a Uchiha and the infamous copycat of Konoha. Dodo commented, no wonder Mizore is in the condition he is in then. Actually sir, it was the blonde one, Naruto that put Mizore in such a condition. Fubuki added from her kneeling position. A mere genin put one of my elite in the hospital. He utilized a brutal taijutsu we have never seen before. Nader explained as he produced the dented chakra armor that Mizore had been wearing, much to the shock of the large middle-aged man that sat upon the throne, whom took in the damage done to the piece of armor. As he looked at the battered armor, Dodo was deep in thought. This armor was designed to absorb unnatural punishment, both physical and jutsu alike, and yet a mere genin with an unknown taijutsu style had obliterated it. He would need to have his development team focus on designing a stronger armor that can better withstand such an onslaught, though mostly for himself. The others can get their upgraded models later, if they survive their encounters. After all, they were expendable tools. What are your orders, Dodo-sama? Fubuki inquired. For now, you will do nothing. The man stated as he rose from his seat, a sinister grin spreading across his face. Right now, they will have no choice but to take the south pass through the mountains. It is there, we will set an ambush in 3 days. That is when you will strike, kill everyone and bring the princess to me. Understood, Dodo-sama. Both snow shinobi replied in unison before departing the throne room, leaving the larger man to his thoughts. Soon, my dear niece. Dodo mentally snickered. You will give me the final key to the weapon that your father built, and with it I will keep the entire country locked in an iron grip. Meanwhile, as the pink-haired snow shinobi walked alongside her teammate in silence. While her face wore her trademark, cocky grin, on the inside she was worried. Worried for her best friend and those with her, as she had no way to get word out of the planned ambush without arousing suspicion. She could only hope and pray the Konoha shinobi as a whole would be able to keep everyone safe. Please be safe, Koyuki Haim. She silently prayed. With Team 7, my team and I have discussed the issue, and we have agreed to continue on with the mission. Kakashi informed those in front of him with his trademark eye smile, whilst the lone Uchiha smirked arrogantly from behind the masked Jonin. Asama, Koyuki, Naruto, and Sakura all silently and subtly exchanged looks between one another. Knowing for a fact there was no discussion between the entire team. Simply because throughout the night, and into the morning hours, Naruto had sat up with the princess, poring over the script and discussing what changes could be made to enhance the story further. Sakura alongside them, also adding her own tidbits as needed, or conversing with Koyuki when the blonde was editing the script. Though Naruto had winked at Koyuki, causing her to blush slightly, as if to tell her, I told you so. I see. Asama finally spoke up. That is good to hear. We should make landfall by this afternoon. After that, we will take a caravan along the southern pass in between the mountains to get to our destination, a small quaint village. Upon hearing the travel plans, Naruto stepped forward and looked down at the map that was spread open on the table, clearly marking the path they would be taking. Though something didn't sit well with the blonde Hanyu, and he knew exactly what it was. Here, he stated, catching everyone's attention as he pointed to the pass in question that passed right between the two large mountain ranges. This area is where we will most likely be attacked. And how do you know that, Dobi? The Uchiha questioned. I agree, Naruto. How did you come to that conclusion? Kakashi inquired, looking towards the blonde genin. Simple, right here is the prime place for an ambush. Naruto explained. Being on the low terrain, we will be at a disadvantage in terms of visibility, while they would have a clear advantage due to their positions on the higher ground, giving them a clear view over the field. The silver-haired Jonin frowned at the explanation. Though he couldn't fault the logic. If the snow shinobi were to attack them again, it would be the perfect place to launch an ambush. Not to mention with the layout, it would be fairly easy to box the caravan in and to pick them off at their leisure. Of course, that led to another question the masked Jonin had. Why were the snow shinobi after Koyuki? There had to be a bigger reason than just her being the missing princess. Mentally shaking away his questions for the time being, he looked to his genin team. Sasuke, you will be watching over the princess today, try to make a good impression. Kakashi stated with another eye smile towards the raven-haired teen, before turning his attention to the other two. Sakura, you will be guarding Asama-san and the film crew. Naruto, I want you to keep a lookout for any threats. It really seems that Tada-sensei is trying to keep Naruto-kun and Koyuki-hime apart. Inner Sakura commented, earning a mental nod. Pretty sure it's because the Uchiha Tem has shown interest in her, now that he knows she is a princess. No doubt, Inner replied with a growl. Though with his social skills in talking with women, this is a disaster just waiting to happen. I will be retiring to my room for the rest of the afternoon. Koyuki stated, before looking to the producer. And I will not be doing any shoots today. Of course, Koyuki-hime. Asama replied with a slight bow of respect. Pushing up from the table, the wayward princess made her way out of the room, while the others separated to do what they were instructed to do. Only to frown as the Uchiha quickly fell into step behind her at an uncomfortable close distance for her liking. Reaching her assigned cabin on board the ship, she paused at the door before turning to face the Uchiha, seeing that he fully intended to follow her into her bedroom. I have no need for you inside my quarters, Uchiha-san. She briskly stated, causing the Uchiha to scoff. You say that now, but here soon you will be begging me to come to bed with you. Sasuke smirked, ignoring the scowl that grew on the princess's face. After all, only I will be able to give you a strong heir for your throne. Before you thought I was a stuck-up, spoiled little bitch. Koyuki narrowed her eyes towards the Uchiha. But now that you know my true identity, you think I am just going to invite you into my bed. You would be a fool not to. The raven-haired teen cockily replied. I am the last of the mighty Uchiha clan, you should feel honored to bear my children. If I were to invite anyone into my bed for the sake of siring an heir for my throne, I would take Naruto-kun before anyone else. The young princess stated, though unsure why she singled out the blonde genin over everyone else. And what does that dobe have that I don't? The Uchiha demanded, infuriated that yet another woman would choose the blonde loser over him. Let's see, he's strong, intelligent, and above all, compassionate. Koyuki listed off the top 3 qualities the blonde Hanyu possessed. Now, I have no need of you. Not giving the brooding Uchiha a chance to respond, she disappeared into her room and roughly shut the door behind her, letting out a huff of frustration and mentally cursing the masked Jonin for assigning the egotistical emo as her personal guard. Why couldn't Naruto have been instructed to guard her? She found his presence much more enjoyable, not to mention they could talk about a number of things as the blonde made himself very approachable, no matter the topic. Meanwhile Sasuke glared at the door, once again having his pride bruised from the princess's rejection to his advances. Scoffing he turned and left the doorway, putting his hands in his pockets as he stalked away. Grumbling about how the blonde dobe was ruining everything for him, as he slowly made his way to the deck of the ship, where he could see Kakashi and Naruto near the massive mast of the ship, talking about something, only coming into the tail end of the conversation. That taijutsu style you used yesterday, who taught you? The masked Jonin inquired, looking to the blonde genin. It's not a style I have ever seen before. Naruto looked to the silver-haired Jonin for a few seconds, not sensing any negativity from the man, surprisingly. It seemed Kakashi was genuinely curious. Actually, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto began, I created it myself. Can anyone learn it? Yes, and no. The blonde answered honestly. This style requires years of body conditioning. While it is feasible for someone to learn it, they wouldn't be proficient in it until years later. As if you could create your own style, you probably copied it from someone else. Sasuke spoke up, catching the two's attention. Naruto only shaking his head, while Kakashi sighed at his favored student. You were supposed to be guarding Koyuki-san. The masked Jonin chastised the raven-haired teen, though earning a cocked eyebrow from the blonde next to him. Sasuke grunted with a shrug. She refuses to allow me to enter her room. Meaning he probably tried to flaunt his Uchiha arrogance on her. Naruto thought to himself, earning a chuckle from the Kitsune girl. Kakashi only sighed and shook his head, not saying another word about it. She probably rejected him right away. I told him not to rush anything with her and to make a good impression. And what's so special about your taijutsu style anyways? The Uchiha asked, clearly not impressed by it. If a dobe like you can do it, it can't be that effective. At least not in your hands. But a true elite like me, could no doubt make it better. What's so special about it? Naruto grinned, as that even if you copy it with your precious little pink eye, it would be useless to you. You dare insult the power of the Sharingan? Sasuke demanded. Kick it, Naruto suddenly said, catching the Uchiha off guard while gesturing towards the mast. What? Kick it, as hard as you can. The blonde instructed, much to the confusion of the raven-haired teen and even Kakashi, who was wondering what Naruto was planning. What use would it be to kick the post? Kakashi asked. Fine, if the vaunted Uchiha is too scared to do it, I'll do it first. Naruto shrugged before taking a stance, bringing his leg back and swinging it forth. Driving his shin into the large wooden mast, causing the deck in the immediate surrounding area to shake and groan under the power of the strike. What surprised the two Sharingan users further, was that Naruto made no reaction upon the impact. Almost as if he didn't feel it. Not wanting to be outdone, Sasuke copied the strike. However, when his leg made contact with the massive chunk of wood, he let out a cry of pain and fell to the deck, holding his shin. All while looking up at his blonde teammate. That is why it is useless to you. Naruto explained. As I told Kakashi-sensei, this style requires years of body conditioning before you can even begin to be proficient in it. And how many years did it take you? The silver-haired Jonin asked. I started creating it when I was 6 years old. He replied with a shrug. Kakashi's eyes widened in shock at the implications of what the blonde was saying. If it was true, Naruto could very well be a protege. It also made the masked Jonin wonder what else the blonde genin knew that he had yet to display. He really needed to get an updated dossier on Naruto as soon as he got back to the village. If you had this technique the entire time, why didn't you ever use it in the academy, dobe? The Uchiha asked as he struggled to stand, trying not to put any weight on his bruised leg. Look underneath the underneath, isn't that right, Kakashi-sensei? However, before the trio could converse any longer, a black puff of smoke erupted just in front of Naruto, putting both Sharingan users on edge as they took defensive positions, albeit Sasuke still favoring one leg. Though Naruto simply knelt down in front of the now clearing smoke, which revealed a slender, light blue snake with golden eyes. "Hey Nagini-chan, how are you doing?" Naruto greeted the new arrival as he extended his arm to allow the snake to crawl up and into his jacket. Knowing full well that his current location wasn't exactly ideal for his slender friends. "I've been doing good, Naruto SSSSAMA." The snake hissed from inside the blonde's jacket. "Though we do wish you would summon USS more often." "Sorry Nagini-chan, I will try and use my summons more often in the future." The blonde smiled to his summon. "So what brings you here?" "Mistress Anko wished to inform you that you have a new guest staying with you." The blue snake answered. "I see, thank you for letting me know Nagini-chan. You should head back to your realm and warm up." "Thank you, Naruto SSSAMA." The snake hissed once more before disappearing into another cloud of smoke. "Naruto, you have a summoning contract?" Kakashi asked, surprise evident in his voice. "That was my snake summon." The blonde replied. "Anko-chan allowed me to sign it just after I graduated as a reward." "That wasn't the only reward you got that night either," Ari added with a mischievous grin as she replayed the memory of the night he graduated, causing the poor blonde to blush slightly. Though Naruto quickly shook it off as he began to ponder just who was now staying at his compound with his girls. He knew Yakumo was there and wondered briefly if Kurenai had moved in temporarily to reconnect with her student, though he quickly dismissed the theory. Anko wouldn't have sent a snake summon for just that. Mentally shrugging, he decided he would find out when he finally arrived at home. "How do you have a summoning contract, Dobi?" Sasuke demanded. "Very easily. My hubby Haim allowed me to sign hers and I passed their test." The blonde grinned. "Anyways, I believe I should be keeping a lookout for any potential threats. So, if you'll excuse me." Having nothing left to say, Naruto left the two Sharingan users to their thoughts. Kakashi was once again surprised at what the young blonde had displayed, and the fact that at such a young age, he was able to gain a summoning contract. Meanwhile, Sasuke was seething with jealousy that the blonde loser had abilities that should be his, not wasted on some talentless loser. "Just how much are you hiding, Naruto?" Kakashi thought to himself before turning to Sasuke. "You should probably put ice on your leg to prevent it from bruising further." Konoha. A few hours earlier, Izumi was bored, with her target out of the village for an extended period of time, and as most of the girls her target was with were active shinobi, she couldn't really follow them around, leaving the root member with very little to do until Naruto returned to the village. Though there was one, the civilian girl who helped run the ramen stand her target would frequent. While she had no intention to harm the young ramen waitress, she did figure she could at least get some additional information on Naruto. She knew she should have reported her mission a failure after Naruto had made her out in the theater, but she had taken the blonde's advice and continued on and acted as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Unconsciously, she gazed at her left hand. The same hand that Naruto had grabbed hold of to prevent her from fleeing when the usher had asked for their tickets, a faint blush appearing on her cheeks as she recalled the memory. "I am just looking to get more information on Naruto-san," Izumi mentally told herself as she made her way towards the ramen stand, unaware of the two groups that were tailing her from a distance. For the past few days, the fallen Uchiha woman would occasionally find herself watching over the girls Naruto was involved with from a distance. Namely Yugao and Anko, watching as they would laugh and joke around with one another, and of course their main topic of discussion would be about Naruto, causing a pang of loneliness to wash over her. Though what she found most amusing is how the two would humiliate another individual, Hayate Gecko, a man who seemed to have an obsession with Yugao, from what Izumi could determine. Within a few minutes, she found herself in front of Ichiraku's ramen stand. Taking a deep breath, she entered the stand and took a stool at the counter. She didn't have long to wait as Ayame bounded out from the kitchen to greet her. "Welcome to Ichiraku's, what would you like, miss?" Izumi frowned slightly, a little embarrassed as her social interaction had been severely limited since she had joined Root. Only going to places operated by those with Root connections, and their meals were always the same. So this was the first time that she actually had to order something herself in years. "Forgive me for asking, but what does Naruto-san normally order?" the Uchiha woman asked, though not missing the suspicious look from the ramen waitress. "Well, I honestly don't think you could stomach what Naruto-kun orders," Ayame answered. "So far, he is the only one currently can handle it." "I see," Izumi frowned. "So you know Naruto-kun? We met briefly and he highly recommended this place," the Uchiha woman replied with half a lie. In truth, Naruto had never recommended the ramen stand, she had just observed him coming here frequently to eat. "I see," the brown-haired waitress smiled. "Well, if you're interested in trying some of Naruto-kun's favorites, how about what he used to have all the time?" "That sounds pleasant, thank you." With the order received, Ayame disappeared back into the kitchen to relay the order to her father, whom was currently tending to the cooking and dishes. While Izumi sat awkwardly on the stool, awaiting her order, she could recount the few times she had observed Yugao and Anko sitting in these exact spots, laughing and conversing with one another, but she had no one. Causing another pang of loneliness. After a few more minutes, Ayame had returned and placed a moderate-sized bowl in front of her, full of miso ramen with a mixture of pork, beef, and chicken. At the scent of it, Izumi's could do nothing to prevent her stomach from growling in anticipation of the dish. Giving her thanks, Izumi slowly began to dig into the bowl, allowing the flavor to explode in her mouth. Naruto-kun used to love that dish before he found his new favorite. The ramen waitress giggled, making small talk with the woman. I see, Izumi replied. So what can you tell me about Naruto-san? What kind of person is he? Oh, are you interested in Naruto-kun? The waitress teased, earning a slight blush from the Uchiha girl. Or, is it for your task given to you by that old fossil? This caused the Uchiha woman to freeze, mid-bite of her food. Slowly casting her eyes towards the brown-haired ramen waitress, whom was sporting a knowing grin on her face while she struggled to contain the giggle that threatened to escape from her lips. You look surprised, Ayame commented with a giggle that escaped her lips. You really shouldn't be, Naruto-kun tells us everything. So of course we knew you've been tailing him, and we also know all about that old war hawk's obsession with turning Naruto-kun into his personal weapon. For her part, Izumi was unsure of what to do. She hadn't expected the girls Naruto was involved with to be aware of her assignment to tail the blonde, as they never showed any signs of knowing who she was or what she was doing. Though, she supposed it did make sense, with how close he appeared with all of them. She had observed that much during her encounter with him at the movie theater. Relax, if Naruto-kun deemed you a threat to him or us, you wouldn't be here right now. The ramen waitress said, breaking the woman out of her thoughts. As for your mission, afraid there is not much I can tell you that you don't already know. Unless you want some more private information, for that, you would have to ask Anko-chan. The implications caused the poor Uchiha girl to blush, completely missing the second figure that entered the ramen stand, until an arm draped over her shoulders, snapping Izumi out of her thoughts, only to see a grinning snake mistress in the form of one Anko Midarashi. Was wondering when you were going to finally stop in, Anko stated as she took a stool next to the root member. The usual, Ayame-chan. Coming right up, the ramen waitress exclaimed before disappearing back into the kitchen. Before Izumi could reply to the snake mistress, another body took the seat on the other side of her. Looking to her right, she could see the purple-haired Anbu woman, Yugao. Feeling trapped, the young Uchiha woman quickly finished her ramen and went to leave the payment for it so she could leave, but was stopped by a hand on her wrist. Looking to the offending hand, she saw the person who it belonged to simply smile at her. You should stay and chat, Yugao offered, removing her hand from the girl's wrist, earning a nod of agreement from the snake mistress. Very well, Izumi conceded, seeing no way out of this. And so, over the next hour the four women conversed with one another. At first, Izumi had kept quiet and only spoke when one of the girls would bring her into the conversation, but as time passed she found herself opening up more and more. Gone was the earlier tension Izumi felt earlier, instead replaced by a sense of companionship. By the time she was ready to leave, she had done something she hadn't honestly done in nearly a decade. She laughed, a true, heartfelt laugh. Parting ways with the two women, Izumi made her way towards one of the many route-safe houses on the outskirts of the village. While she couldn't say she got any useful information to report on, she did get a handful of embarrassing tales about her target, making her giggle slightly as she recalled the stories both Anko and Yugao had shared with her. As she neared the safe house, she shook the thoughts from her mind and took on a stoic expression before stopping in her tracks, just as 12 blank masked Anbu surrounded her on all sides. What is the meaning of this? She demanded. Izumi Uchiha, you have been found guilty of treason against Danzo-sama. The leader of the group spoke up with an emotionless voice. Under what grounds? Izumi demanded, settling into a defensive stance. Dining at a non-root affiliated establishment, conversing with non-root affiliated personnel, and failing in your mission assigned to you. I have already reported that Naruto-san is out of the village on a mission, effectively halting my own mission until he returns. The Uchiha woman argued, though not relaxing from her stance. As for the rest, I was gathering further information. Regardless, you have shown disloyalty to Danzo-sama and his cause, the leader spoke once more, drawing his tanto. And for that, you must be removed. Bring it, Izumi challenged, pulling out a pair of kunai. Not waiting for them to attack, the Uchiha woman charged the leader of the group and made a diagonal slash along his chest, before spinning to block an attack coming from behind her, while delivering a strong kick to her first target to knock him away. Parrying the attack away, Izumi jammed her kunai into her attacker's throat before using a kawarimi to replace herself with another one of the root anbu that surrounded her, allowing him to take the attack meant for her as she jumped back to avoid another strike that barely just missed her, leaving a small scratch on her arm, causing her to wince slightly in pain. However, she didn't have time to dwell on her pain, as she quickly rolled out of the path of a volley of kunai aimed straight towards her, though one had managed to strike her in her right calf, severely limiting her movement. Favoring her injured leg, Izumi stood defiantly against the 10 remaining root anbu, going through a series of hand seals before launching a fireball towards the group, though catching none as they quickly evaded the attack and descended upon her, delivering a brutal kick to her chest, sending her back into a tree, causing her to cough up a small amount of blood and spit before her body crumbled to the ground. The root anbu did not let up, as the 10 remaining members sent another wave of kunai towards their target, this time hitting their mark, striking deep into her body, though fortunately she had managed to cover her vital areas. Wincing in pain that racked her body, she could only look up to see the leader of the group slowly approaching her as her eyesight began to dim. "This ends now," the leader spoke as he approached the now vulnerable Uchiha woman, bringing his tanto into a striking position. "I just wish I could have spoken to Naruto-kun one last time," she thought as she closed her eyes and accepted her fate. However, the strike never came. Weakly cracking her eyes open, she saw none other than Anko and Yugao taking out the remaining root anbu, with the snake mistress using her snakes and kunai to dispatch her opponents, while the Queen of Blades cut hers down with quick and precise slashes. Within minutes, the two kunoichi had dispatched the root anbu. The last thing the young Uchiha woman saw before darkness claimed her, was the two women approaching her. "Anko-chan, take her to the compound. Haku-chan should be able to address her wounds," Yugao instructed the snake mistress, whom quickly moved over to pick up the bleeding Uchiha girl. "I'll clean up here." Nodding, the snake mistress disappeared in a swirl of leaves as she shunshined to the Uzumaki compound to get the girl in her arms treated for her wounds. 1 hour later, cracking her eyes open, the first thing Izumi noticed was that she was laying on a soft bed, instead of the ground she had blacked out on. Gingerly lifting her arm, she found her wounds were dressed and cleaned, making her wonder who had treated her. The last thing she remembered was the two women from the ramen stand coming to her aid. "You're awake, I see," a voice sounded from the doorway, prompting the injured Uchiha to glance over the new arrival, seeing a young woman with black hair standing at the doorway with a tray of what appeared to be food. "How do you feel?" "Like shit," was the Uchiha girl's blunt response as she laid her arm back down, though her answer had earned her a small giggle from the young woman. "That is to be expected," the black-haired beauty replied as she knelt down next to the bed, placing the tray of food on the stand next to the bed. "While not life-threatening, your wounds were severe. Thank you for treating me. Forgive me. My name is Haku Momochi, soon to be Uzumaki." The young woman smiled. "And you are Izumi Uchiha. A pleasure to meet you." Haku smiled as she helped her patient sit up comfortable in the bed so she could eat. Izumi groaned in pain, but was able to position herself, despite her body's protest. "Thank you." The Uchiha gave a soft smile as she accepted the food tray. "So what happens now?" "For now, you stay with us," Yugao answered from the door, catching both girls' attention. "I highly doubt you will be welcomed back into Root as of now. Anko-chan has already sent a summon to Naruto-kun to inform him of your stay here." Izumi frowned at that. Not that she wouldn't be welcomed back, the attack on her was proof of that already. It was how the sword's mistress spoke of her now former affiliation so casually. "I thank you both for rescuing me," Izumi said, turning back to her food, though not touching it just yet. "Did you follow me?" "Actually, after you left, we noticed the two groups following you, so we tailed them," the sword's mistress replied, stepping fully into the room. "I see, thank you once more. When Naruto-kun gets back, he will take a look at those seals on the back of your neck and probably have them removed. Shouldn't be too hard, it looks like they were incomplete the last time they were reapplied." Izumi narrowed her eyes at this information. Danzo had denied having any seals placed upon her, stating that her promise to serve him was all he needed. In exchange, he would help her track down Itachi. Something she had come to learn he had neglected to do, stating one reason or another. However, what troubled her was when the seals were placed upon her, and why were they incomplete? Worse yet, what would have happened if they were complete? After all, he did the same for Yakumo-san. Yugao continued, causing the Uchiha woman's eyes to widen. "Yakumo-san is here?" she asked, concern laced in her voice. Yes, Naruto-kun was able to get to her before that old war hawk could finish the seals placed upon her. "Is there a problem with her being here?" "No," Izumi replied softly, looking down at her food. "But there may be a problem with me being here." "Why is that, Izumi-san?" Haku inquired. I was the one who hanged as Kurenai-san to isolate Yakumo away from everyone for Danzo-san. Danzo's purpose. She admitted with shame of her past actions. Silence emanated through the room, before Yugao walked over and knelt next to the bed. Placing a comforting hand on the former Root's shoulder. I am well aware of how Root operates, and I am positive that during that time, you were acting under the seal's influence. Yugao reassured the young Uchiha. As I said, only the current application of the seal looks unfinished. I do not doubt you had a complete seal at some point. Besides, everyone under this roof is to be treated as family. Haku smiled. Family, a long-forgotten concept for the Uchiha woman. A simple concept that brought tears of joy to her eyes, despite her fighting them. Thank you, she smiled. Yuki no Kuni, present time. Kakashi groaned as he listened to the princess protest to his assigning Sasuke to watch over her. It seemed that the last Uchiha had been a bit too overzealous in his flirting with the young actress that she refused to have him anywhere near her. Forcing him to assign Sasuke to watch the film crew and have Sakura watch over the princess, and keep Naruto on lookout. This seemed to calm the princess down, though seemed to upset Sasuke. Though it was clear to the masked Jonin that Koyuki had wanted Naruto to be assigned to her. For what reason, he didn't know, but he could see a slight disappointment in her eyes when he assigned the pink-haired genin to her. Shrugging off the memories of the last hour of the ship ride, the silver-haired man watched as the crew began to load their crates and supplies onto the strange-looking vehicles he had never seen before. It appeared to be horseless carriages that moved on their own. Trucks, he was told they were called. A strange name he thought, but shrugged it off as he entered the one that everyone was in. Soon, all the cargo was securely packed into the various of trucks, and the convoy began to slowly creep through the snow-covered roads. If his team of genin were in shock to see the vehicles in action, they didn't show it. Sasuke was brooding over in the corner, completely ignoring the film crew he was supposed to be watching out for, whilst Sakura and Naruto watched as the snow flew by. Koyuki wasn't far from the two lovers, scanning over the script for the movie they were about to start officially filming. I am going to head up top, Naruto announced as he opened the window and swung outwards, landing with a soft thud on the top of the truck they were in. Sakura only shook her head in response and closed the window to prevent the heat from escaping. Knowing full well her mate would be all right. Smirking a little, she approached the distracted actress and sat across from her. Excited to start officially filming? I am, Koyuki smiled, and I am glad it is a movie I can be passionate about again. Sue, who do you think will play the male lead? The Pinkett questioned, knowing full well they had yet to cast a male lead to play opposite of the demon queen that Koyuki was poised to portray on the big screen. Honestly, I don't know. The young actress frowned. Our usual actor declined to be in the movie, though I don't blame him. He absolutely hated that smut as was appalled that I had been forced into it. Well, how about Naruto-kun? She grinned, catching the blush that grew on the princess's cheeks. I don't know, she stammered, much to the amusement of the Pinkett. I mean, I wouldn't mind and. You like him, don't you? Sakura giggled. Yes, Koyuki blushed, using the script to cover her face in a bashful manner. Unable to deny that she found the young blonde attractive, not simply in looks, but also his compassion and intelligence as well. Then why not ask him to do it? The pink-haired Kunoichi inquired. I suppose, but what about you? She asked, looking to the pink-haired teen. Aren't you and him? Oh that, Sakura giggled as she leaned in close to Koyuki's ear and whispered. I don't mind sharing. This caused the poor princess to severely blush, bringing the script up once more to cover her face. This of course caused Sakura to chuckle lightly, though not too loudly, not wanting to attract any attention from the two Sharingan users. Perhaps he would be the perfect choice to play the male lead. Koyuki thought to herself as she continued to cover her face with the script, waiting for her blush to fade away. After all, he did say the hero was based off of his own experiences. However, before the two girls could continue their conversation, the truck came to a halt, prompting those inside to wonder why they had stopped. Their silent question was answered as Naruto opened the door. Avalanche blocked the path ahead, going to take some time to dig through. He informed those inside, all right, might as well stretch our legs while we can. Kakashi commented as he ushered the rest of his team out of the vehicle. Nearly an hour had passed since the trucks were forced to stop, with many of the workers grumbling about the cold conditions. Though they couldn't complain too much as Asama had pitched in to help dig out the pathway. The only one who was unable to pitch in was Koyuki herself. Not that she didn't try, but none of the workers would allow her to help. As such, she had stayed in the truck, reading the script to memorize her lines. Of course, this did not sit well with the Uchiha, as he had started to rant and rave about how such peasant work was beneath him once again. Shouting out his frustration, ignoring countless warnings to keep his voice down, unless he wanted to unleash another avalanche upon them. However, he merely scoffed at the warnings, and continued his rant. It wasn't until a distant rumbling sound that the Uchiha shut his mouth. Without warning, a tidal wave of snow crashed over the center of the convoy, causing alarm among the workers and film crew, as the truck that Koyuki had resided in was swept down the mountain under the torrent of snow. Shit, Naruto cursed as he threw down the shovel he had to the ground, and to the surprise of those around him, dove into the shadows, disappearing without a trace. Salvage what supplies you can, and pack them into the remaining trucks. Asama ordered, after the avalanche had calmed down. Fortunately, they didn't lose too many trucks, but the middle-aged man was still concerned over the safety of the princess. Congratulations Sasuke, Sakura spoke up. Your arrogance may have finally killed our client. The Pinkett didn't wait for a reply, as she moved forward to help gather what supplies could be found that was scattered across the hillside. Meanwhile, Kakashi was equally disappointed in the raven-haired genin. Sasuke had been warned countless times that such loud noises could trigger another avalanche, and he had ignored those warnings. This is not going to look good on the report. Kakashi lamented. I can only hope Naruto is able to find her, and that she is safe. With Naruto, the blonde Hanyu had quickly found the princess, homing in on the seal he had placed on her a few days ago. When he arrived, he found her buried under the snow and unconscious, no doubt from being knocked around the inside of the truck. A small amount of blood coming from a wound on her head. He quickly assessed her injuries, and was relieved to find them non-life-threatening. Gently, he picked her up in a bridal-style fashion and proceeded to make his way out of the crumpled truck. It was a sheer miracle that she only suffered minor injuries, considering the condition the truck was in. Knowing that the sun would be setting soon, Naruto knew he had to set up camp and get her out of her wet clothing before hypothermia set in. Taking a quick glance around, he spotted a cave not far off. Wasting no time, he quickly moved towards the cave opening, and was pleased to see it offered plenty of shelter from the elements. Gently, he set Koyuki down, and proceeded to create a dozen of shadow clones. Alright, we need to set up camp and get a fire going now. Naruto began barking out orders. You two, get firewood and get a fire going, and you two, take this ninja wire and set up a line to hang her cloths on to dry. The rest of you are to be on watch to ensure no hostiles comes close. Hi, the clones responded and set to work completing the tasks given to them. Meanwhile, Naruto removed his jacket and rummaged through his scrolls. Finding the ones he was looking for, he quickly unsealed a tent and sleeping bag. And instructed a few more clones to set them up as he began the embarrassing task of undressing the unconscious princess. As soon as she was, he moved her into the now set-up tent and wrapped her up in the sleeping bag before quickly proceeding to remove his own clothing, knowing he would have to use his own body heat to keep her warm. Once he took care to apply a special seal to his own body, to prevent anything from suddenly popping up before he entered the tent and closed it behind him, and finally slipping into the sleeping bag. Wrapping his arms around her frigid body. This is going to be awkward when we wake up tomorrow, he thought to himself, with Ari snickering a little in the back of his mind. Before long, the blonde Hanyu succumbed to sleep, just as the crackling of a freshly started fire began to sound just outside the tent. Signifying that his clones had succeeded in starting the campfire. With any luck, they would keep the fire going all night, and Koyuki's cloths would be dry. Otherwise, he was sure Sakura would give him a hard time if Koyuki and him arrived with the princess wearing his cloths and jacket. If you look closely, you can see the future. A gentle and deep voice echoed in the darkness as a young girl, no older than 6, with dark blue hair stared into the mirror in front of her. Attempting to look into it at different angles. Frowning slightly, as she couldn't see anything other than her own reflection staring back at her. I can't see anything, she finally replied, disheartened. Of course you can. The voice encouraged the young girl, prompting her to look in his direction, revealing a large man with glasses and a slightly receding hairline. A gentle smile on his face. When the spring comes, you will. The spring, she questioned, looking inquisitively at her father. What is spring? It may have seemed like an odd question for the young girl to ask, but all she had known through her short 6 years of life had been cold weather and endless snow. Hence the land's name, Yuki no Kuni. Her father could see her confusion and chuckled softly at it, earning himself a small pout from the girl. That's right, you've never experienced spring, have you Koyuki? It was more of an observation than a question. Receiving a saddened shake of her head, answering the rhetorical question. Koyuki. The man smiled, catching the young girl's attention. Close your eyes. Frowning slightly, the young Koyuki did as she was instructed and closed her eyes. Now, try to imagine yourself surrounded by flowers. Her expression lightened a little as she focused her imagination to bring forth a field of flowers within in her mind. a small smile coming to her face as she had filled it with some of her favorite flowers. Orchids, tulips, and various other wild flowers she had seen in books and in some of the market stalls being sold in the nearby town. There now, isn't that beautiful? Her father commented, seeing on her face that she was picturing a field full of flowers. Now, run through it as fast as you can. Smiling, she spread her arms out as she imagined herself running through the field of flowers. She could just almost feel the petals touching her hands and tickling her legs as she ran through the field within her own imagination. It makes you feel all warm and happy. Her father smiled, doesn't it? She smiled, feeling a sense of warmth around her. That is spring. Her father smiled, snapping her out of her imaginary run through the flower field, causing her to look to her father. And if you never give up, if you believe the future, then spring is sure to come. Believe in the future. If you do, the spring will surely come. He repeated as he stood up from where he was kneeling and walked over to where she stood, placing his hands on her shoulders. What will you do when it comes, Koyuki? The young Koyuki adopted a thinking pose before smiling and looking up to her father. I'm going to become a princess. She smiled. Oh, her father smiled down at her. What sort of princess? Let's see. She adopted another thinking pose. One that is strong, and kind, and most of all, fights for justice. This earned her a belly full of laughter from her father, causing her to smile. That's some dream. He laughed, ruffling her hair slightly, causing her to pout and quickly work to organize her hair once more. Well, so long as you believe in your dream, and never give up. One day, you will be that princess. Saying this, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a beautiful necklace with a simple hexagonal crystal hanging from it and secured it around her neck. You can see it, can't you? He continued as he placed his hands back on her shoulder, prompting her to look into the mirror once more. There is a beautiful princess standing right there in front of you. But, I have sort of a problem. The young Koyuki spoke, looking up at her father. There is something else I want to be. Really, what's that? He asked. An actress, she proudly exclaimed with joy. Her father could only laugh in response, knowing full well his daughter would be anything she set her mind to, so long as she believed in her dreams. Slowly, Koyuki began to open her eyes, noticing she had tears streaming down her face from the memory she had just dreamed. Unconsciously, she snuggled into the object of warmth that was in front of her, breathing in his scent before feeling an embrace tighten around her firmly in a comforting manner, causing her eyes to shoot open. Finally awake, Koyuki Haim. The other figure inquired. It was at this moment that the princess realized two very important things. The first and foremost, was that the young blonde before her had an extremely captivating body, with well-defined muscles that would no doubt make some of her past male co-stars envious of the young blonde. The second thing was that neither of them had any cloths on, giving her a good look at his body up close, causing her to blush at the situation she was in. Though she craned her neck upwards to look at his face, she noticed something that made her smile slightly. The young blonde had placed his hitate over his eyes, preventing him from seeing anything whatsoever. While it was a small gesture, it was endearing to her to see that he had respected her enough not to ogle her body, despite their unique situation. Though that did beg the question, how did they end up in this position with the blonde? However, before she could voice her question, he rolled away and moved to the entrance of the tent they were in, leaving her completely covered, though lacking in warmth due to his sudden absence from the sleeping bag, causing her to frown slightly. Cracking the entryway open slightly, he poked his head out. Are our cloths dry? She heard him ask someone outside, making her a little nervous that others may have saw her in such a state. However, her fears were quickly dispelled as she heard his voice answer back to the blonde and hand a bundle of clothing to Naruto. Zipping up the tent again, Naruto placed the princess's cloths inside the sleeping bag with her. You were buried in an avalanche and knocked unconscious. He began to answer her unasked question. Your clothes were soaked, due to the snow. I had to undress you and use my own body to keep you warm to prevent hypothermia from setting in. Thank you, Naruto-kun. She replied from under the sleeping bag, blushing like crazy at the realization that she had been the entire time with an equally Naruto. However, she was broken out of her thoughts when she heard the tent open up once more. Taking a peek out of the sleeping bag, she saw the blonde exit the tent, giving her an eye full of his entire body. This of course caused her to blush even further. He is, well endowed, was all she could think as she worked to calm her racing heart and begin to get dressed. After a few moments had passed, Koyuki had exited the tent now completely dressed and was immediately greeted by the scent of freshly cooked eggs, ham, and some rice. Looking around, she finally found her blonde savior at the mouth of the cave they were inside, talking to one of his shadow clones. Receiving its instructions, the clone quickly disappeared into the shadows, before the blonde turned to greet her. Breakfast is ready, and as you saw, I just sent one of my shadow clones to let the others know we are alright and should meet up with them later today. He smiled as he dished out a plate of breakfast and passed it towards the blue-haired princess. Offering a soft smile, she accepted the plate and sat down next to the campfire and begun eating. Noting its flavor and how could everything tasted. How did the avalanche start, Naruto-kun? She asked after a few moments, earning a small frown from the blonde. While we were digging out the path, the Uchiha Tem kept ranting and complaining loudly about doing what he calls servant's work. That is probably what caused the avalanche. Ironic that even Koyuki Haim had offered to help with no complaints, but the damn Uchiha acted like he was asked to work the mines or something. Ari scoffed from inside the blonde's mind. Agreed. Naruto mentally nodded. Though you know the Elder Council will only allow Gigi to lightly scold him, despite nearly killing our client. This of course caused the Kitsune girl to growl in disgust at how the Elder Council of the village would grovel at the Uchiha's feet and let him get away with damn near anything. Something she knew was going to bite them in the at some point down the road. At least after the whole CRA debacle, the boy had lost a bit of favor among the civilian side of the council. How did you find me, if I was buried in the snow? She asked, looking to the blonde. It couldn't have been that easy. Well, truth is, he sighed, putting his empty plate down. I have a mark on you that lets me know if you're in danger and where you are. That is how I was able to find you so quickly. This revelation of course caused the princess's eyes to widen slightly. If you're wondering, I put it on you when we first met in that bar. He explained. I knew you were going to run, so instead of being a jerk like Sasuke Tem, I simply prepared. Besides, even then I could feel something was off. But, I've changed cloths since then. She pointed out, frowning in confusion. True, but my mark bleeds through clothing and anchors itself to your skin. He stated. Furthermore, it moves around to avoid detection, so anytime you felt something like a bug bite, that was the mark moving to a new location. Well, that explains why I was itching yesterday. She frowned. However, she did recall one thing. The mark never ventured into any obscene places. Every bite she felt was either along her back or shoulders. Anyways, once you are finished with breakfast, we will meet up with the others. He instructed as he stood up and set to work breaking down the campsite. Working quickly to get everything stored back into their respective storage scrolls. By the time Koyuki had finished her meal, the entire campsite was completely cleaned up. Though despite the blonde's offer, she had insisted on helping at least wash the dishes. Citing that she didn't want to appear as one of those spoiler princesses you would always read about in various articles and other stories. Chuckling, Naruto had relented and allowed her that. Ready, Koyuki Haim? Naruto asked as he offered his hand towards the princess, whom gladly took it, unlike the first time he had offered it to her. We'll be back with the others in the blink of an eye. Koyuki blushed slightly, catching the blonde's attention. Could we perhaps take the long way back? I think she wants to spend some time alone with you. Ari teased. So what's the tally now? You have 2 clan heirs with Hana-chan and Hinata-chan, an actual cage with Mei-chan, and now an actual princess. Perhaps she just wants to talk about the script in private. The blonde mentally offered, earning a slight scoff from the Kitsune girl. Oh, I can imagine. Ari grinned. She is going to want to add a hot, passionate, steamy scene between the demon queen and the hero, after of course, she asks you to be in the movie. And what makes you think she will ask me to be in the movie? She's been eyeing you all morning, and blushing at the same time. The Kitsune pointed out, so I fully expect her to ask you to play the Dante. Seeing as you already told her you based him off of yourself. We'll see. Naruto mentally smirked before turning his attention back to the princess. Though if he was honest with himself, he knew the Kitsune was right and was half expecting the princess-turned-actress to ask him to be in the film. As you wish, he smiled at her. Team 7. Kakashi let out a long sigh as he leaned against the inside of one of the trucks that had survived the avalanche, his nose buried in his trademark orange book. Accompanying him was Asama and Sasuke, the former pacing around nervously as they awaited for the arrival of the blonde genin and the princess. While he didn't show it on the outside, the masked Jonin was worried. He had expected Naruto to be back last night, with the blonde's ability to travel through shadows. However, it was late morning and there was still no sign of the two. A small part of his mind that was heavily influenced by the orange smut he constantly read had produced some scenarios as to why the two have not yet arrived. After all, trapped alone in the cold with only their body heat to keep them warm, it was the perfect scenario to be added into the Ika Ika Paradise novels. Perhaps when this is all done, I could suggest this to Jiraiya-sama. He thought to himself, with a perverted giggle. However, his perverted musing was interrupted as the door opened, revealing his pink-haired student, whom had been outside helping to finish clearing what was left of the snow that had blocked the pass. Despite her boyfriend being missing for the past 12 hours, the Pinkett seemed to be in a good mood. A ghost of a smile on her face. Naruto-kun and Koyuki Haim should be arriving sometime this afternoon. She informed the group, earning a confused look from the masked Jonin. How do you know? He inquired. I just spoke with one of his shadow clones. She explained as she fully entered the truck and closed the door behind her. Naruto-kun and Koyuki Haim were forced to camp out last night due to the princess being unconscious when Naruto-kun found her. Well, that's a relief. Asama let out a sigh in relief that the princess was safe. Why didn't Naruto just use his shadow ability to get back here last night? Kakashi questioned, having seen the blonde teen do it a handful of times. One of which was during the aftermath of the bridge battle, when Naruto had used the technique to take Sakura to the house to get some rest. Naruto-kun didn't want to risk causing any further injury. Even though he can use his shadow step ability flawlessly, he still doesn't know everything about it or if there are any side effects from taking an unconscious person through it. Sakura explained, but if she is awake, he could be able to use it now, correct? The masked Jonin inquired, why would it take him until later this afternoon to arrive with her? Sakura merely shrugged, perhaps she is still disoriented from the avalanche or she simply doesn't want to rush back. The Pinkett offered, though with the urging you gave her, she probably wants to spend as much time alone with Naruto-kun. Inner chuckled, no doubt. The Pinkett mentally replied, I wish they would return quicker. Asama sighed but shrugged, but at least I know she is safe. Looks like we have little choice but to wait until they return. Kakashi sighed. Sasuke, for his part, had wisely kept his mouth shut throughout the entire conversation, opting instead to silently brood in the corner. The previous night, Kakashi had made it abundantly clear that his little outburst had jeopardized the entire mission, and it would be a miracle if he would escape this without receiving some form of punishment. Be that from the Hokage, or the princess once this mission was complete. Anyways, I'm going to go train until they return. Sakura stated, leaving the truck once more. I suppose I should get things ready with the film crew. Asama said, departing the truck as well, leaving the two Sharingan users alone. Silence hung between the two for a handful of minutes before the masked Jonin lowered his book and eyed his favored student. I suggest when she returns, you do everything within your power to impress her. Kakashi advised, knowing the Uchiha had his eyes set on the princess, and hoped they could make it work to get the raven-haired boy to focus on other things, rather than pure revenge. Sasuke grunted, she should already be impressed with me being an Uchiha elite. Regardless, give her a good impression. If you do, she may ask you to be in her movie. The masked Jonin gave one of his eye smiles. After all, they are supposed to start filming the start of the Ika Ika Paradise movie once we reach the village. I believe the first scene is in the hot springs. Sasuke merely scoffed at the perverted masked Jonin, though he wouldn't deny that he was a little bit enticed by the idea of seeing the princess completely for him. Not to mention knowing what kind of books the movie was from, he knew all too well what the scene would lead to. A small grin appearing on his face as he planned to make the princess his woman and show her what a true elite could do. Naruto and Koyuki. It had been roughly an hour since the two had set off from their campsite, with Naruto carrying the princess on his back as he carried her through the snow. Not that the princess minded as she laid her head on the blonde's back as he effortlessly bounded through the snow, and took in his scent. Getting a feeling of comfort and contentment from it. Naruto-kun, what is it, Koyuki Haim? He asked, craning his head slightly to look back at her slightly blushing face. I was wondering, hoping that you would consider playing the role of Dante in the movie. She asked softly, though loud enough he could still hear her. Why me? He inquired with a teasing smile. Surely now that you are out of that smut film, your usual male leads will sign on. Perhaps, Koyuki sighed, a little disheartened at the prospect that the blonde may turn down the offer. It's just that, despite all the films I have done, I have never done a full romance scene, and I would like it to be with someone I trust. At that, Naruto turned serious and nodded his head, feeling the seriousness behind her request. Very well, I accept. He gave her a soft smile. When we get back, I will write up a request scroll to send to Gigi to extend my and Sakura-chan's stay. Why request Sakura-san to stay? She asked, trying not to sound as jealous as she felt. I don't fully trust the Uchiha Tem nor my supposed sensei not to try something if I am not around. The blonde replied while looking ahead. Has something happened before? Koyuki asked with a slight frown. A few weeks ago, we had a diplomatic mission to Kurigakure and set up an alliance between the two villages. Naruto began. I guess during that time, Sasuke Tem had expressed interest in Sakura-chan, and Tada-sensei did everything in his power to try and get them alone together. Which is probably why he assigned the duck to guard you. The blonde continued. Once he learned of your heritage, he probably set his sights on you. Willing to bet if he hadn't already, he will be throwing around his elite status as a Uchiha soon. He already has. The princess responded, a tone of disgust in her voice as she recalled her interaction with the Uchiha just outside her room while on the boat. Had the audacity to say I should feel honored to bear his children. Naruto could only scowl at that. I refuse to be alone with him for even a second. She commented with disdain. Stay close to either me or Sakura-chan. The blonde offered her a smile. We'll protect you, even from our own teammate. Thank you, Naruto-kun. She smiled, laying her head back down on his back. We should be back with the others in about half an hour. He decided to inform her, as he took in his surroundings and noticed they were getting close to where the convoy had been halted. Receiving a nod in acknowledgement. Half-hour later, true to the blonde's word, a line of trucks came into view as he bounded over a small snowdrift. A lone, pink-haired girl could be seen standing in the open, waiting for their arrival. For her part, Koyuki was both relieved and disappointed at the same time. She had greatly enjoyed her time alone with the blonde as they had talked about a great deal of different topics. She had even learned the reasons as to why the pinkett had informed her that she didn't mind sharing, after the princess had flat out brought it up to the blonde, much to her own embarrassment. Koyuki was relieved as to how honest the blonde was in regards to that topic. It had helped allay many of the concerns she had about any potential relationship she could or would have with the young blonde. Though she still wasn't fully welcoming to the idea of sharing him, but she had decided to discuss it in more detail with Sakura later, since the pinkett seemed completely comfortable with the concept and even happy, and had encouraged her to seek out a relationship with Naruto. Enjoy your camping trip, Sakura teased as she approached the duo, which earned her a blush from the princess. We ran out of s'mores. Naruto responded with a chuckle as he set Koyuki down. How have things been here? A bit boring, but we got the path cleared this morning. The pinkett answered before turning to the princess, a look of concern in her eyes. And please be careful, I overheard Kakashi telling Sasuke to make a good impression to you when you returned. This of course caused both Koyuki and Naruto to narrow their eyes. He is probably going to try and assign the duck to her again. Naruto pointed out, earning a nod in agreement from Sakura. I refuse, Koyuki stated defiantly, clenching her fists tightly. Don't worry, the blonde winked at her, causing her to blush slightly. Koyuki-hime, it is a relief to see you safe, Asama stated as he approached the trio, bowing in respect to the young princess. And I thank you, Naruto, for looking after her. Well, unlike some members of our team, we prefer to keep our client alive and safe. The blonde responded, eyeing the approaching Uchiha, whom only scoffed in response. That's enough, Naruto, Kakashi chastised as he approached the group. Sakura, I want you to guard the film crew today, while Sasuke. No, Koyuki exclaimed, cutting the masked Jonin off. I absolutely refuse to be left in the care of that arrogant asshole. Naruto and Sakura both couldn't help but snicker to themselves in the princess outburst, whilst the Uchiha looked like he was about to blow a gasket. Meanwhile, Kakashi looked taken aback. In case you forgot, Hataki-san, she continued, causing the masked Jonin to flinch at the use of his last name. I already refused to have him as my protection detail earlier, and I still refuse to be anywhere near him. I see, Kakashi sighed, before looking between Naruto and Sakura. Very well, Sakura, you will be watching Koyuki-hime. Nodding, the pinkett stood next to the princess, whom was still glaring at the masked Jonin for a few more seconds before turning and leaving the group, along with Sakura. Though not before giving one last look towards the blonde, who merely gave her a subtle nod. Sasuke, you take watch this time while Naruto watches over the film crew. The silver-haired man finished his instructions, earning another scoff from the Uchiha, and a shrug from the blonde. Having his instructions, Naruto immediately took off towards the truck the film crew was in. Though not before making a few shadow clones to keep watch, not fully trusting the Uchiha to perform his given duty. Arriving at the truck that housed the film crew, Naruto let himself in and quickly set to work writing out the request scroll he had promised Koyuki. Deciding to keep the short, no matter how tempting it was to inform the old man of the avalanche incident, the blonde finished up the scroll quickly and rolled it up. Kuchio's no jutsu, the blonde exclaimed, slamming his hand to the ground, causing a small poof of smoke, revealing the same slender blue snake that had appeared to him the other day. Greetings, says Naruto SSSAMA. Nagini hissed, quickly crawling up the blonde's arm. Sorry for calling you back to this cold place, but I need you to deliver a scroll to the old man for me. The blonde stated as he pulled out the scroll he had just written. If it isn't too much trouble, Nagini-chan. No trouble at all, Naruto SSSAMA. The snake hissed, taking the scroll with her tail. Thanks. The blonde smiled as the snake disappeared in another plum of smoke. The blonde was fairly certain the old man would allow the extension for himself and Sakura, as it was on the client's request. Though he had kept the reasoning for the request for just the two of them a secret, wanting to surprise the Hokage when the film finally did come out. However, he did have to reveal that the Ika movie deal had been cancelled, due to the director meeting with N.U. Kitsune, and that the new film was from the Demon Heart books. Which wasn't exactly a lie, as they had met the author. Shouldn't take long to hear back from the old man. The blonde spoke to himself. Now to prepare for the inevitable ambush that's to come. He thought to himself as he narrowed his eyes slightly. I swear, if this dodo didn't orchestrate an ambush in this pass, I will swear off ramen for a year. This of course earned a small giggle from the Kitsune girl, as she could imagine her blonde mate going through ramen withdrawals, should he actually be wrong about the ambush. Though, like the blonde Hanyu, she felt it was coming, and the only thing they could do is spring the trap. Hokage's tower, Konoha. Hiruzen sighed for what seemed like the millionth time within the past hour as he sorted out another stack of paperwork to be filed away. While allowing his shadow clones to do most of the work, it was still expected of him to at least help out. He had just lifted up the stack when a plume of smoke erupted from his desk, causing the poor old village leader to stumble back and drop the stack of papers, causing a domino effect as other stacks of papers fell over, adding to the ever-growing mess. Ah! He cried out as anime tears poured from his eyes, groveling as he imagined how long it was going to take to clean up this mess. Hokage SSSAMA. Nagini inquired from the desk, looking down at the crying old man. Yes, Hiruzen replied as he slowly picked himself up off the floor, turning to his desk and seeing the light blue snake coiled around a scroll. Ah, Nagini-chan, it's been a while. Message from Naruto SSSAMA. The snake hissed as she uncoiled from the scroll, allowing the Hokage to pick it up to read. I see, the village leader commented as he read the contents of the scroll. Raising an eyebrow as to why the actress had specifically requested Naruto and Sakura to remain for an extra 2 weeks to finish up personal matters outside of the mission parameters. Shrugging slightly, he decided he could give his surrogate grandson this much. Pulling out a fresh scroll, he quickly jotted down his permission to allow both of the requested genins to stay for the requested 2 extra weeks before rolling it up and handing it off to the snake. Please give Naruto-kun my regards and that I wish him luck. Hiruzen stated with a smile. Of course, Hokage SSSAMA. Nagini hissed as she took the new scroll and disappeared once more to deliver the message. Letting out another sigh, he looked around the office before making a few more shadow clones to help him clean up the mess of paperwork. After nearly an hour of picking up and sorting out all the papers, the village leader had finally finished cleaning up the last of the mess. Not taking any chances this time, he assigned each of his clones to file away their respective stacks of papers to avoid another colossal mess from happening. There, the Hokage smiled as he sat back down in his chair, though upon looking at his desk, he found something peculiar. Unknown to him, a certain purple-haired Anbu had swapped out his usual orange book with the first of the Demon Heart series. Being curious, he picked it up and flipped it open, only to find a small note written on the inside cover. Hokage-sama, while I respect your love for your students' books, I strongly recommend giving this a read. I think you may enjoy it. With regards, Neko. Very well, Neko-chan, he chuckled as he proceeded to open the book, not one to turn down a thoughtful gift. Though, he may as well read it if the new movie Fujikas is based off this book series. Though he had to admit, the summary of the book did sound interesting. However, before he could begin to get into the book, a presence at his window caught his attention. What do need Jiraiya? The Hokage inquired, placing the book back down on his desk to give his former student his full attention. Well, sensei, came across something interesting. The white-haired man stated, turning serious. A group of missing nins has formed, calling themselves the Akatsuki. Do you know what they are after? Hiruzen asked, a little concerned. When missing nin began to group up, it was never good. Not yet, but I have my network keeping an ear out for anything new. The Toad Sage stated, the moment you learn something, let me know. Will do, sensei. Jiraiya nodded. So how's the Gaki? He is doing well, currently on a mission in Yuki no Kuni. Hiruzen replied with a smile. Protection detail for the actress Fujikas while she films her new movie. Ha ha, so the Gaki gets to see my movie being made then. The white-haired man laughed at the irony of his godson being on the set for the upcoming Ika movie. Actually, the studio cancelled the Ika movie. The Hokage informed the perverted Sannin, whom immediately stopped laughing, a look of horror washing across his face. What? He asked, his voice stuttering. According to the scroll I just received, Fujikas ran into a N.U. Kitsune before they set off to Yuki no Kuni, and finalized the deal on a movie based on those books. Hiruzen informed his now heartbroken student. How? Jiraiya mentally questioned himself. Damn that Kitsune to the depths of the Shinigami's stomach. Damn. The white-haired sage finally responded out loud. All that effort to intercept his letter for nothing. Jiraiya, are you telling me that you misused Konoha resources to further your own gain? The Hokage inquired in a cold tone. Come on, sensei. Jiraiya held up his hands in a surrendering position, his eyes flickering to the older mon's desk, catching sight of the demon heart book sitting on top of it. A sense of betrayal worming its way into the perverted sage. This was the best time to get my movie made, and with Fujika starring in it, it would have been a sure hit, and furthered my book sales at the same time. That doesn't help your case at all. Hiruzen sighed, because not only did you use the village's resources for your own gain, which could be considered treason, mind you also engaged in corporate sabotage. Jiraiya could only gulp at the serious implications. You had better hope that your actions doesn't come back to bite this village in its. The Hokage warned. I should go check on my contacts. The white-haired sage clumsily replied as he moved towards the window before jumping out of it and disappearing into the sunset. One of these days, Jiraiya, your perverted ways is going to catch up to you. Hiruzen sighed and turned back to the book on his desk. Picking it up, he began reading. Above him, Yugao couldn't help but smile. Omake, the doctor is in. And what's so special about your taijutsu style anyways? The Uchiha asked, clearly not impressed by it. If a dobi like you can do it, it can't be that effective. At least not in your hands. But a true elite like me, could no doubt make it better. What's so special about it? Naruto grinned, as that even if you copy it with your precious little pink eye, it would be useless to you. You dare insult the power of the Sharingan? Sasuke demanded. Kick it, Naruto suddenly said, catching the Uchiha off guard while gesturing towards the mast. What? Kick it, as hard as you can. The blonde instructed, much to the confusion of the raven-haired teen and even Kakashi, who was wondering what Naruto was planning. What use would it be to kick the post? Kakashi asked. Fine, if the vaunted Uchiha is too scared to do it, I'll do it first. Naruto shrugged before taking a stance, bringing his leg back and swinging it forth. Driving his shin into the large wooden mast, causing the deck in the immediate surrounding area to shake and groan under the power of the strike. What surprised the two Sharingan users further, was that Naruto made no reaction upon the impact. Almost as if he didn't feel it. Not wanting to be outdone, Sasuke copied the strike. However, when his leg made contact with the massive chunk of wood, a sickening snap echoed across the deck of the ship as the Uchiha collapsed to the deck, holding his now broken shin, screaming in agony. That is why it's useless to you. The blonde sighed. It takes years to condition your body to use this style, but don't worry Sasuke-chan, I have a doctor on call that could even rival Tsunade. Sasuke could only glare at his blonde teammate through tear-strained eyes as Naruto stood up and performed a series of unknown hand seals before slamming his palm into the deck. However, instead of the traditional plume of smoke associated with a summoning jutsu, a steel cage began to rise from the deck. Slowly, the door spread open to reveal a rather tall individual wrapped in a cape. Their face evenly covered with white makeup, dark red lipstick on their lips, and dark blue eyeshadow around their eyes. Stepping out, Naruto greeted the strange man. Greetings Dr. Frankenfurter, I have a patient in need of your care. The blonde stated as he gestured to the fallen Uchiha. How do you do, love? The now identified doctor greeted the raven-haired teen, whom could only look up in horror as the man began to approach him with a slight strut in his step. Throwing off his cloak in the process, revealing him to be dressed in a rather scandalous outfit that would normally be worn by girls looking to surprise their lovers for the evening. No, 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 Sasuke screamed as he vainly attempted to crawl away. I'm fine. It's just a bruise. It's just a bruise. Sasuke, Sasuke, Sasuke. Naruto shook his head. It is important to get your leg fixed. After all, Dr. Frankenfurter is a professional. Though, as the blonde was talking, the doctor broke out into a song and dance number about showing the raven-haired teen about not getting strung out by the way he looked and to not judging a book by its cover. As well as a few implications of showing the Uchiha what love really was. All the while dragging the poor raven-haired teen back into the elevator, to disappear back to wherever it had come from, leaving behind a very confused and horrified Kakashi. Don't worry Kakashi-sensei, the blonde reassured the still stunned masked Jonin. Sasuke-chan is in very good hands.